Good. Sorry.
Oh,
so sorry, Levi. So sorry. I just want to talk about Levi for a second.
He's great. He is
don't lie. I'm just kidding.
No,
Levi. Okay, so you guys have watched our podcast, so you understand a little bit about us and how distracted we are, and sometimes things are just like in one ear out the other. But Levi has been patient and has been teaching us. He's not all that great. I don't want to pump his tires too much, but he's been helping us out.
He's great. I love him.
I didn't know
and
how
Victoria
to use my phone.
helping us do a simple Instagram story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to Refract. We're gonna talk about gender roles. We're gonna circle back to this one. We attempted to film this once already.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think about the first film?
It did not go as planned. We have a different perspective in it now. Mm-hmm. And I think it wasn't planned. It was not planned.
Yeah, no,
we just went into it. We're just like, oh, let's do this topic. And we just went into it.
Which is sometimes great. There's certain topics I think would be great doing that. But for something as weird as gender roles and as infuriating for some people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just came off too harsh. It came off, it was not as...
It was hateful.
Yeah. Yes, it did. And... yeah, so we want to do it again and coming at it as a different perspective. And yeah.
So our first thing that we're talking about is why even talk about gender roles? Mm-hmm. What makes gender roles important? I was just reflecting on this question because I'm like, why do I even care? Why do I want to talk about a man's role or these boundaries that he lives in? Why do I want to talk about a woman's? Mm-hmm. And then obviously this question came up, I don't know, it's been coming up over the last few months, and just during a time when we're trying to figure out where we fit in with our relationships with guys and girls, and just trying to figure out like the dynamics between a guy and a girl relationship, because I think we're at a point where we're like, okay, we just want things to work out. Mm-hmm. What is the easiest way to get there? Mm-hmm. And what is like the right way to go? Mm-hmm. So I know for me seeking this question and wondering about gender roles, it's me trying to find a guidance in all the chaos of life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I go back to like the formula or the rules of gender roles, then I can like formulate an answer, like come to a solution. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. No, not really. Does it?
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, like if life's just kind of crazy, it's easy to fall back on like some rules or just some baseline advice, which is why I'm like, okay, gender roles. Let's just talk about a role of a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's important to understand the image that God created within those roles.
Yeah.
I think it's just important, like coming at
what
least
did he have in mind when he made a man and a woman?
Yes, exactly. And I think it's an interesting topic. It's and it's different coming from someone that has experienced not following those rules, but I'm excited for this.
I like what you said. Oh, and talking about the image of God, like what did he envision when he made a man and a woman? And we talked about that at church or in community group. We were talking about seeking what God wants. What does God want? Because we're always thinking about what we want and praying for that, and it's like, okay, it's okay to think about what God wants. So what was his intention with creating us as humans? These amazing, I mean, I think we're pretty cool creatures, pretty cool people. What was his intention? What does he want for us? What does he want to see be done? Which is like a weird thing to think about. Like, what does God want?
Yeah. And that's when you have to tune in. You have to listen and you have to pray and you have to...
Yeah, but like, why even think about what God wants?
Because he's leading us. He's our Father.
I know, exactly.
He's our Father, it's leading us, and we can't just live life following our hearts. Right?
Those darn wicked hearts.
Yeah.
So we have some questions. Questions to lead our conversation today. So you talked about how, you had some experience in being kind of a masculine role. Mm-hmm. And how that impacted your relationships. So you've talked about
just being independent.
Yeah. And it's stemming from like you're growing up,
mm-hmm.
you know, not having that father figure, or having a father figure but not your dad.
Yeah.
And then other father figures were interesting.
Yeah.
And then you kind of fell into like that masculine role.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were in that masculine role, did you know you were being that way?
No. I thought I was such a strong woman. I thought that I could do everything on my own, and it's not true. I grew up in a house, like, I didn't grow up with really a dad figure, like, at all. So I didn't have that masculine side that I would see. So yeah, I used to be super masculine. I was so stubborn. I didn't want any help from anyone because I thought I could do everything on my own, and I was so masculine in that way. And so I wouldn't let men do things for me, and I wouldn't let like other people do for me ever, because
you just didn't trust them, or you were like,
just thought I could do it on my own. Yeah,
right.
I thought I could do it on my own. I was strong enough to do it on my own, but not following, being so masculine at the time. I thought I was so happy, but I wasn't. Now that I've fallen into that feminine role, I was not happy. I was not happy doing masculine things and having this mindset that I can do what men can do, or better.
Yeah.
You know? Like, and I had that mindset of, well, I could be better than a man, or, you know, like
what do you need a guy for?
Yeah.
When I can
yeah, exactly.
Myself?
Yeah.
So it's like you're in competition almost.
I had that woman empowerment feeling.
Woman empowerment, I feel like, now means you are able to do things on your own without the help of a man. A man isn't adding to your success. He's separate from it. I mean, that's what I just see in like social media and stuff, and like pop culture. I don't necessarily see that in my day-to-day relationships now, but I mean, I see it. I'm just like not in that, but yeah, so I think social media will tell you a lot of that. Just like the hustlers side of it, the girls who are getting their money, very much like, yeah, I don't need a man to like get me money or get me success or get me where I need to be. Like, sure, he can like come along for the ride. So woman empowerment is like being that leader, being that independent person who doesn't need a relationship. Yeah. When the Bible literally says like it's not good for man to be alone, and he created woman out of a man.
Yeah, and
we're built to be together.
It's just our culture, and you know, modern feminism is so different than what it used to be. But yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. It was honestly really, really hard to fall into the feminine role after being so masculine and independent, and like, it's like you get into this mindset where you just hate men, where you just don't want, it's like a competition. It's like men versus women.
Did you feel that way? Like, did you hate men?
I don't think I hated men, but I think if I stayed in that role, I could have, I wasn't quite there yet, but falling into, when you have an actual masculine role in your life, you fall into that feminine role, and it's really nice. Right. It feels right, and I feel happy, and I feel like that is how God created men and women, and woman power is so different than men's power. You know? Yeah. Oh, right. And just even the word power, obviously, I mean, you've heard it a billion times, but the word power just seems like something that everybody wants, and power is like something associated with men and strength and that physicality. Like the it doesn't
physical
mean
strength.
One is stronger than the other.
It's just absolutely different.
It's just so different. Yeah.
And it's unfortunate if, as a woman, you never get to experience that soft, sacred femininity. But I don't believe that you can experience that without that man in your life. We say, and everyone says, that a weak man creates a strong woman, or a feminine man creates a masculine woman, and a masculine woman creates a feminine man. And And that's not satisfying for anybody.
Yeah.
So so God created us for each other,
as unite as one. He did.
So my mother is a very skilled and talented writer, and she has a blog, and she's writing 2 books right now, God bless her. But she she has a blog, and one of her writings is called What If a Kingdom? And she's writing about the story of Adam and Eve, and she's asking the question, what if we were created this way? Like, what if we were created by God and his family, and it was made, and he created us out of love. And it was just like this beautiful unraveling story. So this is what, just a little excerpt that my mom wrote about Adam and about God creating Eve out of him. So bear with me here. All right, so this is talking about Adam. What if he found everything there was and yet remained lonely? What if he called every living creature, spoke to it, touched it, stroked the mane of the golden lion, touched the silvery scales of the lizard, and felt the breeze rustle the feathers on the eagle's back? What if he rolled on the ground in a huge happy hug with a brown bear and received the slurpy kisses of a pup, yet couldn't find what he was looking for? What if he sat sad on a glistening shore and wished someone else was there? What if the king called everything he made good every day, but on the day of the man he said for the first time, it is not good, because he knew that yearning was woven deep through the man he formed, to have another like himself to walk and talk with? What if the king really did notice and breathed a deep sleep over the man? What if he ever so gently extracted love from within him? What if he opened this crown one and made 2? What if he knew this would happen and just wanted the hunger to come first? For the one to realize, just wanted the hunger to come first. For the one to realize that alone was not enough, that there was another to complete the story. What if this was just the beginning of the yearning? What if, when the man awoke from the sleep, he saw her and knew this? The half he'd been looking for was found. I wonder, was his side still tender where she'd separated from him? What do you think, as the slumber lifted from his eyes and he awoke to the call of the star breather? What if he saw her, rose up, and stood just looking, breathing, as he gazed upon the loveliness of one who was like himself, hair and shape and gentleness, but different? What if he felt that something had gone missing from himself, but was found all packaged up in her, and wondering what to name this one that captivated him, removed the breath from his lungs? What if the king had just condensed his glory into the oneness of 2 and called it very good? What if that wondering man did gaze upon this answer to loneliness's lament and poured out his appreciation with these words? This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of the man. What if that wasn't a solemn, emotionless vow, but a wrenching cry of wow, and a wide-eyed, glowing appreciation of the perfect completion of his hopes? So I think the key part of that is the part where it says, what if the king had just condensed his glory into the oneness of 2 and called it very good? So God's plan for us is to not be alone, and is to experience that wholeness. It's to just experience that relationship, and his glory can be experienced through the unity of a man and a woman. And I just think that's a really beautiful foundation to look at a relationship between a man and woman. And I love that the way that she wrote that was like, God knew. I'm sure God knew. He knows it all. But he wanted Adam to like have that yearning for her. He wanted him to experience life without her, so he knew that it wasn't enough. And then he was given her. And then he was like, yeah. He had everything in this world, and it wasn't enough until he had a woman. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah. Like, I want that. You know? It's inspiring.
It is.
And it's beautiful.
Really is. Yeah. And we're meant to be together. Men and women are meant to be together.
Yeah, meant to be. And it's hard to say meant to be because that can come from, you can say a lot of things are meant to be, just, and that's very opinionated. But as believers, we trust and believe that his design is perfect. And we can experience oneness and wholeness and experience his blessing through that unity. So, yeah.
What are gender roles?
Yeah. So
I think it's opinionated too, because
we can go
there's only so much you can find in scripture what it says about gender roles. Like, but I know that he did create men to or women to care and be nurturers. Is that the word? Nurturers. And yeah, bring life into this world.
Yeah. So yeah. And it says, the controversial part of it, it says, wives, submit to your husbands. And I know that hearing that is, it's just like, I would just question why. That's so cut and dry. And then I was just reading some things and it was like, well, listen, wives submit to your husbands isn't saying women submit to all men because you are inferior. No, that's not what the Bible's saying. And you could twist it that way. You could twist it that way and say, well, this is what it's promoting in our culture. But no, it's saying women submit to your husbands. So if you choose to get married, guess what? You also get to choose your husband. Hopefully, ideally. I know we have to talk sometimes in ideal terms, but you choose your husband. So maybe choose a man
that you can trust,
that you can have that sort of relationship with. Don't choose a man that you would never follow or let lead you anywhere. I wouldn't marry that man. So you do have choice.
Yeah, you do have a choice. And again, that doesn't mean like, so let's say you have your husband, you submit to him. That doesn't mean that I have to listen to him and I trust him, or I have to submit to him. He's your husband, so you submit to him, right? And I will submit to my husband. But I think, like you said, it gets other twisted. people twist it and be like, well, I don't trust all men. Like, I don't want to listen to all men. And it is hard. It's really hard. I thought it was nearly impossible to do that, and I didn't think you should. But now having that feminine side and feeling like you can turn off your like brain cells when you are with a masculine man that you feel like you can submit to is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, and we can talk about it all day long of how it's meant to be and how it's a good way to go. But that doesn't, I don't think that necessarily gets the point across. The Bible's full of lots of directions and rules and boundaries. And I love that as Jesus is born and in the New Testament, Jesus didn't live bound by rules. He was always judged by the church and church leaders because he wouldn't, like the classic story of Jesus not respecting the Sabbath. He's healing people on the Sabbath. He's doing like physical work, or eating when he's not supposed to, or doing whatever. So Jesus is a perfect example of, yes, rules are there and it's good, but you do not need to follow them so exactly. That's not what living in faith is. So when it comes to, wives submit to your husbands and this and that, you don't need to take it so literal. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Again, I think everyone's opinionated to gender roles, but I believe that men are here created to provide and to have the more heavy duty roles. I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know how to describe those because roles. Men, and women are meant to do soft things because their power is quiet and men's power is loud. And
men are virtue. Men gain virtue. Does that make sense? Men gain virtue, become virtuous through hardship. They go through hard things, they deal with it, and they get stronger. And that's why men become more attractive when they're older, because they've gone through things, they've come at the other side, they've built that character. Woman's virtue is very different. Woman's virtue is in her innocence, and it's in her innocence, and it's not necessarily in how much trauma she's faced and come through, but it's just in her maintaining that innocence. And a man can protect that innocence. So
men think very rationally and women think very emotionally, and therefore it makes sense for men to lead and you submit to a man, because it's hard for women to think rationally. Sometimes it's just how we're
built relationally.
We're built differently. It's just really different, but that's okay.
So if the world was run by women, which sure, I'll say it.
That goes back to like the last question.
Yeah, I feel like it's happening now. I do feel like we are in an era, if you will, an era. My girl era. We're in the era where I do feel like women are in charge. And it's funny that we're seeing all these changes in development with gender identity, different things happening in ideals for marriage, for jobs, just the whole structure of society. I do feel like it's when there's more woman input, things have just gotten so wild and subjective.
Very reactive. Very reactive.
Yeah. And there's always going to be an extreme. It's often men rule or woman rule. But
I just think there's a reason why we have these gender roles, and God created us differently for many reasons.
And to be our best selves, we need to be together and work together. I really do. I really, really, really do believe that.
I do too. I think we need to be a team, and I don't think men and women should be against each other.
Yeah.
I think we all need to work together.
So what does that look like on the day-to-day? Like, how can we work with men that aren't our husbands? How? Like,
we respect that they can do things that we can't, and we don't take it as
you're being sexist.
Yeah, a sexist way or an offensive way. We respect that they can do things that we can't do, and the same goes for them. And
it's not like taking that for granted.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you do this because you're the woman. It's like, no, I'm
yeah.
allowing you to do this. I'm not going to take charge and be fully independent and do it on my own. I respect that you're better at this. You're more equipped.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you do that.
See, I don't know this stuff. Like, I only found out that that you could do trans surgeries like a couple years ago. I literally only found that out.
When?
Probably like 2 years ago, maybe. Like, I didn't know that I didn't know we went that far that you could do that men can get vaginas and women can get penises.
Oh.
That doesn't seem right to me. It seems satanic to me.
Yes. Yeah. The devil wants you to be as far from who you are as possible.
But there's people out there that go they're Christians or Catholics, or they go to church. How can you live a life for God and get that kind of stuff done? You're almost ruining the creation that He created.
Yeah, that's called being deceived. There's lots of people in the church who don't know God and who aren't living for God, and who the devil just got them like this. And it makes sense that the devil's going to attack your basic biological structure, just like the essence of who you are. If you don't know what gender you are, if you're questioning whether or not God made you in the image of Him, you're already off to a pretty rough start. So and everyone's like, no, just accept this is who you are, which assumes that you were created wrong in the first place, that you were created with such flaws
Mm-hmm.
that you need to stray from that, betray who you were born as because it was wrong, and become someone else. And that's where you find true life and love and power and all of the, and dignity and all of these normal things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the devil tells you find all these things through betraying yourself fully.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good lie. It's a good lie, because I feel like it's such an ego boost if you recreate yourself and you feel like you become a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, that's not the truth. That's not what God's designed us as.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, then there's so much rebellion against the rules and the boundaries in the Bible. And when you just read a rule, you're like, well, why? And it's the same thing. If your parent tells you something when you're a kid and you don't understand it, you're gonna be like, why? You don't have the wisdom or the experience to understand it. They'll be like, don't drink this much because you're gonna get drunk. And then you're like, well, I don't know that. I haven't experienced that. Whatever. So you do it and you get drunk. Now you know. So same thing when God
you learn
says
from your mistakes.
Yeah, you do, and that's why God's grace is so good, and He gives it to us because He knows we're human. But the thing with when the Bible says, yeah, yield to your husband, or God blesses like these marriages, people are like, well, why do I have to go and get married? Why do I have to go and yield to my husband? But then once you go through something, then you realize.
There's always the why. Like, you always doubt it. You always are like, but why, God? Like, why?
Yeah.
But at the end, it all makes sense.
Hopefully. Look at us, so naive, sitting here, unmarried, young, in our prime.
It all makes sense at the end, because...
We have faith that it will. We have faith that it will.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know. We're created equally in the image of God.
Mm-hmm. Can you still submit to a non-religious man? And I mean, non-religious people probably aren't going to be reading the Bible and getting advice from there. Maybe they are, actually. Some people definitely would, because it's just full of so much wisdom. But so let's make a scenario. You're a religious woman. You're a faithful woman, woman of God, and you are in a relationship with a non-religious man. He's not necessarily atheist, but he's not doing things prayerfully. How do you just trust that he's making the right choices?
So is this like opinionated? Like,
well, yeah.
Like,
there's not like
I don't know. I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. But what I think is, no, you cannot submit to a non-religious man.
So you shouldn't, or you can't?
You shouldn't. I think you can, and you probably will, because you want to do the opposite of what God's telling you to do.
You shouldn't even be with him.
Yeah.
You literally can't trust him.
Yeah, you shouldn't. No, yeah. I 100%. I think you shouldn't be with him. If he's trying to be religious and he wants to be, or he's going through his own spiritual journey, I think you should pray about it, and I think at the end you will feel convicted if you're not supposed to submit to him.
Right.
But so it's case for case, right. I guess.
And I think there's value in saying that a man needs to be worthy of a woman submitting, but a woman then also has to be worthy of being in a relationship with that man, being worthy of being a part of his leadership. You can't just like come into a relationship and be like, okay, you're the man, like
you do you,
and he's gonna be like, well, submit to me and whatever I say. Like, no,
no, it doesn't work like that. Like, you can't trust a man if he's not letting God lead him. Like, you can't let him lead you.
That's wild, though.
If he's not.
How many relationships aren't godly?
Well, it's their choice, though. Like,
I'm just trying to think, like, what did I do in my relationships?
I don't know. I just don't think you can submit and let a man lead you if he's not a godly man, or if he's not letting God lead him.
What do you do then?
You go find a Christian man or a religious man.
Okay,
what do you think?
Ask a poll, like,
what do you think?
How do you trust him? If your man first of all, okay, what is your man, what is his faith in, whether it's God or like money or good values or morals? How do you know that he can lead you and lead your family?
Mm-hmm.
If he's not following God, what is it?
That goes back to like what you said about your family will follow religious path.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah,
like
there's
80% of...
There's research about like there's research about the head of the house when he is Christ follower, when he has faith, it translates to more success in his family, right?
It's like 80% chance rather than a woman is 20% chance or something like that.
Chance of what?
Chance of the family following Christ too.
Oh, right. Can you? Yes. Can
For
you,
sure you can.
Be like, you know what? I'm going to support you and I'm going to work with you and I'm not going to fight you when we're having a conflict and when we're in front of our kids and you say something that I don't agree with. Am I going to say, how dare you say that? You're so wrong. You're so dumb. No, I'm going to say...
The country accent that came out of you.
The what?
The Western accent that came out of you.
What?
Yeah, it's the Western accent just came out of you.
I never even do a Western accent.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm
Can I tell you that?
I'm tri-accental. I use a lot of accents. Many.
Sorry,
Anyways.
continue.
Oh, right. So, yeah, I'm not gonna embarrass him and point out all his flaws in front of people and disrespect him. So I think that's what I would submit to him by not exposing him and blasting him. I would talk about that in private. So can you? Yes. Is it in your best interest? You know what? If you were in that relationship, and mind you, the factors are, and he's not abusing you and whatnot, I think you still should submit to that man. You've chosen to be with him. You've married him. You've made that choice. Pray through it. Submit to him. Yeah, I don't think just because he's not a Christian that you should disrespect him.
No, I don't.
I just
not
think
being submissive is not disrespecting him though. Like you can still have a respectful relationship, not submitting to someone.
I don't know if you can. In a
You
marriage,
can still.
This
like,
isn't about like
listen
just
to
dating.
him.
This is about like marriage.
Yeah.
No, I think it's disrespectful.
Interesting.
You're not listening to him. Okay, so if you're not submitting is the same as like what do we need from men? It would be the same as him.
You're not
being like super lazy or not providing anything, not being a leader. Like us not submitting is equivalent to that, to the man just having no responsibilities, no leadership skills.
The thing is, I don't think the reason why I think that though is I don't think it should get to that point where you marry someone that's
but that's how idealistic it happens. It happens. If you choose that person, you're in it.
Yeah. But the question was,
is it ideal to submit to a non-religious man? No. Is it ideal to marry a non-religious man when you're a religious woman? No. But it happens. So.
Yeah. So, but the question is, can you still submit? Yeah, you can.
I think you can.
You can. I don't think you should, but you can.
And that's like so many things. Like there's just. The reason you can is because of the grace of God. The reason things work when you live outside of the bounds is because of the grace of God. Because Jesus made a way for us to be forgiven and for us to be redeemed. So any of these questions where it's like based on rules, can you do this? You would expect the answer to be no, you can't. But God through Jesus made it possible to say, yes, it is possible because you were redeemable and you were loved. Should women be in the military? Okay, so when I graduated high school, I had like 6 months where I was waiting to go to university, and I was just looking at jobs and stuff. I was like, maybe I should go to the military because I just really liked I like conflict, and I like competition. Not that war's a competition. It's not a fun competition. And I'm very blessed to live in North America. But it was appealing to me because of the conflict, the fight. I feel like I find a lot of purpose in the fight and in the chaos, and coming through that. It's just really exhilarating. And that could be my downfall, but also my I
think you're also really
my
hyper. And I think you're also really hyper, and you don't get stimulated enough.
Right.
Because how hyper you are.
She's trying to get me to say I have ADHD. We're not going back there.
No. You're the biggest extrovert that I know. But was that when you felt that way? Was that when you felt more masculine?
Yeah, I suppose so. That's around the same time I was working at a factory. And I was it was. I was on my own. And I just wanted to not do the easiest route, but like get on a route that I knew had a future. Like if you get into the military and things go well, like you can be set. You got your structure around you, you got your pay, you're good. I mean, if you get called to war, you might die, but if you cross the bridge when you get there. So I just, growing up in chaos caused me to be masculine. And then I developed this like sense of enjoyment for fighting. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you feel, now that you're more feminine, do you feel like you still want to go to the military? Yeah?
Well, I know I've become more feminine. Why have I become more feminine? Because I've been able to make real sacrifices in my life and really submit to God, not really a man, but my Heavenly Father. And submitting to Him has caused me to sit back and trust and allow Him to lead. But, I guess we can talk about the evidence in my life. I work with kids, and now I'm about to work with even smaller kids. And yeah, I think just because I've chosen that route, it does show that there is improvement. Okay? Yeah. Why? Okay, you can talk about it in extremes. Why shouldn't women be in the military?
Well, for one, men are stronger than women.
Yeah. Physically?
Physically, yeah.
I mean, they should be if they work out. So, I mean, I could be stronger than a dude who doesn't work out.
It goes back to, like, you should respect what they can do and that we can't. But I'm not saying women can't. I don't know. What would it look like if it was all women in the military?
Oh my gosh.
Right? Like, our country would be ruined.
Yeah, men are just built.
I think men are meant for that, and they're built for that, and I think they were created to do things like that. But that, I'm not saying a woman shouldn't or a woman can't. I just think we're created to do other things.
Yeah.
And we're created to go through other paths, and we're created to bring lives into this
created world. To bring lives, that's ultimate. Yeah, be fruitful and increase the number, fill the earth and subdue it. That is definitely something God has told us to do.
Yeah.
And I always love how science supports whatever the Bible says. And about marriage, there is a statistic that says unmarried or people who never married have a higher likelihood of mortality. So they are more at risk of all cause of death, whatever cause of death. You're just more likely to die sooner when you were unmarried. And that is even more true for men. Men that never marry are 9% more at risk of death, have a higher risk of mortality than women by 9%. And it's just like, there's a reason why God says these things. There's a reason he puts it in place. I don't like, it's not a coincidence that we need a partner. It's not a coincidence that God said it in the Bible. It's not a coincidence. It's there for a reason. But God didn't tell his people to write in the Bible, you will have a 9% increased risk of death if you don't get married. No, he's not going to say that, because it's not based on that. It's based on love and trust. So it's the best. He knows.
He knows the best for us. And to close this off, like, I believe that we should follow our gender roles. But
how many genders are there?
You two.
Don't say it.
Two.
There's two. There's
you
two.
guys
There's
comment
two.
what you guys think, because I'd love to know what you guys think. Comment on our Instagram, YouTube, hopefully TikTok soon.
Yeah.
Comment what you guys think about gender roles and why gender roles are important, because I'm curious to know what other people think too.
Yeah. Or just like your experience. If you've had an experience where in one period of your life you fell into a more masculine or feminine role, and why, and then what changed if you did have that transition. Or tell us what you're in now if you're a woman and you're experiencing like these masculine tendencies. What's going on? Like, let's talk about it. It's cool to talk about. And yeah, we've been there.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank
you
everyone
Hopefully.
for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Wow, we were.
No, cut that out, Levi.
And
Hi, baby. Love you.
Yay.
Thanks, guys.